So, as you all know, we're in the process of seeking a new pastor here soon, and one important step for us is to reimagine what is the mission of our church. And in this first 4 months of this year, we spent a fair amount of time with learning about what are the interests of our congregation and what are our strengths as a church, both through that New Beginnings survey that was done in 2019 and more recently through some of the surveys we've done in worship. And so that we have, if we care to take the time, we have a fairly good description as to what are the strengths of our church and what are our interests. And now what we hope to do is find out what are the needs of our neighborhood so that our gifts will match up with the community's needs. And we're going to go about it assuming that we're going to rely on our strengths, that is, as a church. We're going to think about what it is we do well, or what is it we love to do, or where is our heart, and then match that up with the needs of the neighborhood. And so we've had 2 other forums, as you know, which were really well done. That is, the people who spoke did an excellent job, and couldn't be more pleased with the fact that we had people from our neighborhood who are willing to speak. And so we're really, really pleased by that. And this is our final, and let me get my paper here just to make sure I say it all correctly. So to my right is Miss Erin Murphy, who is the assistant manager at Irvington Public Library. And one of the reasons Miss Murphy is wearing her mask, I think it's okay to share, she's going to visit family and hasn't been able to do that and wants to obviously be very cautious before doing that. So told her she's welcome to keep on the mask as long as she wants this, whatever. We'll just test the sound and make sure all that goes well. But we're so glad, Miss Murphy, you'll be here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. And then Mr. Scott Drum, who is a realtor and probably has also a fairly good idea of what the neighborhood is about. I'm sure each of them will tell us a little bit about how long they've been here and a little bit about what they do. On my left, on the end, is Miss Paige Dooley, who is administrator and chief executive for nursing at Community East Hospital. And we're so pleased to have Miss Dooley here. And finally, we're especially pleased that Miss Karen Lightbourne, who had spoken to our group this past weekend, was able to return. Miss Lightbourne is the director of community collaboration of the East Region for the Community Health Network. Is that right? So we're so pleased that these individuals could be here this evening. So I think I'm going to open us with prayer, and then we're going to ask Ms. Dooley to get us started. So let us pray. Lord, we thank you for our neighborhood, for the people in this room and around these tables, and the people down our streets. We pray, O Lord, that you would speak to us through them, that together we may perceive how we would best serve your kingdom. We ask a special blessing upon this evening, that we would hear and follow and serve in your name. And all God's people said, amen. And so, yes, Miss Dooley, please come up. We're so glad you're here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, first of all, and reaching out to us, since we're just right down Ritter there. A couple of the questions that we were asked to address tonight, I guess I should just tell you a little bit more about me. So I am born and raised in Central Indiana. I'm from Alexandria originally, and I've been at Community East since I was a brand new nurse in 1985, and I went to nursing school when it was Indiana Central, and I wore a white cap when I first arrived at Community East in 1985. As you guys know now, we don't wear white caps anymore. No white hose or anything. So at any rate, I've been at Community for a long time, and I really do have the privilege of leading that hospital. They combined the role of the hospital administrator and the chief nurse role a couple of years ago with some restructure activity that was done, and they just decided, instead of hiring a president and having a chief nurse, that, maybe one person could do both. And so we have a very lean executive team at East, but we have a really great team of directors and managers that really, they really own the place and make it work every day. And so the questions that they gave us to talk about tonight, to talk a little bit more about what the community needs, I kind of have reflected just a little bit on why we are still there. Because in 2008, Community Hospital East had the worst year in Community Health Network's record financially, and there were discussions about closing that facility. So that's not a rumor or anything, that's a true statement. And so I think the record, it was like a $26 million loss or something that year. So there were discussions being spoken around, what do we do here? So there were a number of things internally that they did. They separated East and North completely on the license, and because really, we might be still Community Health Network, Community North is Community Health Network, but we are worlds apart in who we serve, and what the needs of those communities are. And so taking a real good look at that, our board was really, and the senior leadership of Community Health Network, in particular, Brian Mills, was very committed to staying in the neighborhood. And, that hospital was built by people that lived in this neighborhood. They gave money to have that hospital built. And our senior leadership and the board had the vision and the stomach to say, we're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna understand what the community needs, and we're going to build a new facility, and we're going to stay right there. We're not leaving that neighborhood. And we kind of got started in that process, and we got a board approval in about 2014. We opened with our new patients in February of 19, so you can kind of see how long it took us to get that done. It took about 5 years to build the new hospital. But what we ended up with, and we looked at the now, the near, and the far, from the perspective of the community needs assessment, which Karen, knows a lot about how to conduct. But, we found out there's a lot of chronic disease to be managed in the neighborhood. There's a lot of diabetes in the neighborhood. There's a lot of food insecurity in the neighborhood. There's a lot of education needs. There's just, in general, it's a perfect place for a hospital. It was a perfect place in the middle of 50s, and it's a perfect place today. We are open. We are on most days full. Today, I had one COVID. We have about 200 patients bedded there today. We have one COVID patient. We had 4 patients with the flu today. And so the flu is kind of perking its head a little bit, so you might want to consider a mask again if you're around someone that's ill. And we have done great work around just seeing those beds and those halls filled with people that live in the neighborhood. We also have an electronic record, really, that's second to none in the world, Epic. And so if you're not familiar with Community Health Network's way that we connect, but it's through an electronic medical record, so you have access to really great health care right here in the neighborhood. Some of the things that, as I mentioned, in terms of just the chronic disease management, we wanted to make sure that the hospital was easy to access and that we had a front of house, back of house. Some of the things that we spent time in planning was really we conducted a lot of neighborhood surveys, and if any of you were a part of that, thank you. And if you were not, I'm sorry if we missed people. But we looked at, Irvington is a very special place. I mean, we kind of were looking at, there were 9 zip codes around the east side, and there's a big difference in those zip codes. We have a really rich and diverse area to care for. I mean, as a nurse, I actually get goosebumps, or I guess in the church you're supposed to say glory bumps, but it's really amazing the people that we see coming in and out of our doors every day. You can just come and you can sit in our cafeteria and you can see the diversity of the people that we're caring for right there at Community Hospital East. I mean, there are, places in the Brightwood area that, are nothing like what's in Irvington, and it is really not very far apart, but yet in some ways kind of worlds apart. And so, our thought is, how could and this has been our thought all along, how does Community Hospital East understand those unique needs, meet people kind of where they are? And we've got some fantastic programs that we've started up. We've got a choice program for women who have a substance use disorder that are either thinking about getting pregnant or already pregnant. And it's not about shaming people. It's about meeting people where they are, understanding what their needs are, helping them get better. I mean, we're a hospital, for heaven's sakes, right? I mean, we're a hospital, and we should be helping people realize, how their health plays a part in their overall wellness and their ability to enjoy life and that quality piece. So I think the needs that, one of the questions was, what do we think the needs are in the Irvington neighborhood? I think chronic disease management and keeping people from getting diabetes, or if they have diabetes, how do they manage that? We've seen a lot of people now post-COVID, 2 years, who would have known that we would have opened between February and April of 19, and then 10 months later, the pandemic hit. So we really haven't seen the hospital, and then we had a wave, and then it settled down last summer, and then we had another bump up from November until February. So I feel like I've been there every day. I just don't feel like I've really seen normal times. And, it'll be interesting to see, because we see a lot of people that have let things go during the pandemic. And so, the things that kind of drove us to the decision-making to stay right there, rebuild a hospital, bring the latest in. I mean, we have 3 CTs there, we have 2 MRIs, we have the latest and greatest of all kinds of mammography, imaging equipment, the latest in technology for the operating rooms. I mean, the place is awesome. And we're there and we're ready to serve, obviously. But one of the things that when we planned, we never planned for a pandemic. And so now that we've had the pandemic, I've been doing a lot of reading. As you guys know, it's affected people in a lot of different ways. I just turned 58, and I was just watching a podcast, or listening to a podcast this afternoon about, I think some people that maybe, there might be a lot of depression out there in terms of just people that aren't normally, they usually have a lot of steam and they're usually ready to go kind of thing. They're just really kind of burnt out, and they're just kind of without the same level of energy maybe that they had prior to the pandemic. And, again, Community Health Network, we're the largest behavioral health care provider in Indiana. And so when you come to Community East, we have peer recovery coaches in there for people that are maybe more distrusting of healthcare people, but they might connect better with someone that's more able to connect with them on some of their circumstances. So we're using peer recovery coaches. We have a crisis. We have the ability to do crisis 24/7 right there in the emergency department. So, if you're having any issues or know of anybody that's having any issues, please send them to Community East, and we can help get them connected into behavioral care. But I do feel like there is more of that burnout kind of right now in terms of people overall. So I think sometimes that drives other things, like, it kills your joy. You're less apt to get out and take a walk if you're feeling a little bit more blue than usual. And I am right there, I am experiencing this very same thing. And so I think I can, it's fair to say that, we're seeing a lot of that. And so there's ways to help people kind of get over that. So that's probably just a slump or a bump in the road, and there's ways to help people kind of get through that. So I think the needs that we thought about when we built the hospital are still there. I think there may be some other needs now that I was pretty excited. Karen and I have offices that are very close together, and we were sort of talking about what you guys are doing here. I think it's really special, and we're really grateful to have a small part in that, to help work through maybe what the needs are now. And then the second question is, what do we think Irvington Presbyterian Church could do to help meet those needs? I mean, We have, you know, we have several food pantries at Community East. We have one up on the maternity floor, and it would just, for women that are coming in for a check or whatever, they might mention, hey, I don't have any food, or I need diapers or whatever. So we do a lot of little things. We don't really make a big, huge deal about it, but there are a number of missions, I would just call them really, you know, they're missions really, that are going on at East within the area. We've got a little food stand outside on the 16th Street side where the volunteers put food out there and people can just come and take from it. And then the work that Karen's team does in terms of a little bit more investigation around healthcare disparities. So I think as you guys develop your plan and what you guys would like to do and how you see you could use us here in the neighborhood, we can help maybe identify those needs. We can work together. I think that what you guys could do to help with needs that are not met are, you know, if you identify someone in your community that looks like they're maybe not getting out very much, they don't look very good, you know, make sure that they have primary care. We have Mend at Home. We can send people to people's houses to get checked. I mean, there's lots of things going on now that were never available before the pandemic. And so healthcare has changed, and we just have a lot more to offer. So open to continuing this relationship. And just right down the street, right? I mean, it didn't even take me, I mean, I should have walked, actually, but I didn't, because I just didn't feel like it today. So anyway, would I stay for questions, or would I just sit down?
Well, stay there just for a moment. Are there anyone like to ask a question from this? Yes.
Hi.
Debbie.
I'd just like to make a comment that I couldn't help but be struck by the parallels in what we're trying to do and what you just said, because you were talking about the now, the near, and the far, which is exactly where we are, but also your idea of your approach of meeting people where they are, understanding the needs and helping them get better. That's exactly what we want to do too. It's just a different sides of the same coin. So I personally appreciate the offer to work with us. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Chuck.
Do you have any kind of information that you can leave at the church with, like phone numbers,
We do.
you know, that we could have on, so if somebody came in, we could give them the information?
We do. We can load you up with different things. We'll get some stuff down here.
I think part of what we want to make sure not to do is duplicate, anything you all are doing well, and I'm sure you're doing a lot of things well. So that's where we would want to find our niche. That is, how can we really, and you kind of said that toward the end here a moment ago, if we saw someone that, we can send them your way, which is kind of an obvious one. But that's something that we pondered, what is something maybe we could do to help with what the important work you all are doing, or what's something that we might do that's unique so that we aren't, repeating things. I think we've picked up from other people, and maybe Ms. Lightbourne was one of them, about how there may be some needs for different kinds of community education, whether it's in parenting or finances, or does that sound familiar? Is that, I'm not sure, I think you said that, but may have been someone else. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that was definitely something that was talked about on Saturday around, after school programs and even, talking to other churches and other communities there's a lot of activity happening around.
Oh, and we have a lot of
across the world
students
opening up
that can help with
since
stuff.
COVID. Yeah.
Like if there's something something that we want to do with the kids of the church or the neighborhood or something like that, we can.
What do you mean by you have students that
We have students that as a project, they can help with, develop a health fair, say for example.
You mean nursing students?
Nursing students,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
great.
medical students, we have medical
Right.
students too, yeah. So.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so I would just say, yeah. And they, I think, from the partnership standpoint, if you're not sure, there are plenty of ways to connect into healthcare, not even just within the community health network, but into the state level, county level, stuff like that. So.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Dooley?
Thank you.
Well, maybe it would be good for you, Ms. Go ahead and invite up Ms. Lightbourne to come speak. I think that might be a good dovetail for you to join us next.
Yes, share real quickly. My name is Karen Lightbourne, and I'm just going to turn this up here. I am the Director of Community Collaborations, work with Paige. We, just like she said, we are right down the hall from each other. I love being in Irvington, love being on the east side of Indianapolis. I grew up on the east side of Indianapolis. Grew up near 34th and Emerson. My dad worked at Raytheon, which used to be Nova Avionics, for about 28 years. Graduated from Warren. And I've been at Community Health Network about 5 years. Just got my 5-year little award in the mail there, so excited about that. But before I came to community, I was actually the Mayor's Neighborhood Advocate for this area, Warren Township, under the Hogshead administration and the Ballard administration. So I used to come to this church every month for the Irvington Community Council meeting. This was several years ago, but definitely just always loved just kind of the vibe of Irvington, the historic homes, the kind of diversity of it, the history of it, but yeah, just love the east side of Indianapolis. Community Hospital East was the hospital that when I got bit by a dog, my dad ran us to the emergency room. My sister broke her arm. We went to the emergency room at East. So really great to be able to come back and work in the area that you grew up in and just that you can really see. I did have the opportunity to kind of move away from Indiana. I lived in California for 9 years, Washington, D.C. for 5, but came back in 2010 and worked as a community builder for the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and did a lot of big quality of life plan with the Children's Museum, with a lot of those neighborhoods right around the Children's Museum, historic neighborhoods, kind of similar to Irvington, but everyone's just, trying to really, figure out what the future was going to be for those neighborhoods around that, with that. So part of what I do at Community is I lead a team of community health advocates, and they screen folks that come into the emergency room on things like, food, transportation, houses, just the general needs that are in the area. And it's focused on 15 zip codes. They're all on the east side, 15 zip codes that are on the east side of Indianapolis. And we've been doing it for 5 years, which is amazing to me. And I used to meet with Paige and the former president of East. That's how I kind of ended up with this job. But it's interesting to me just when I think about Irvington, I think about the east side. Irvington, like every other area, definitely has needs. I think when people see the historic homes, they see the Starbucks, they see the nice library, they see how the infrastructure has been built here a little bit more, and it's very connected to the city. There might be the tendency to, I feel like Irvington can kind of hide the need a little bit better than other places. But still, when you look at the zip code, you look at, the diversity, you look at people that struggle with hunger here, you can find that data, and you can see that just like everywhere else in the city, and specifically on the east side, food, transportation, housing, all those basic needs, there's definitely people that struggle in getting those needs taken care of. So just like we talked about on Saturday, any way that you might be able to, think about addressing those needs, I think is valuable on any level. I know that there's a food pantry, ICANN in Irvington. There is, I know you have I Do, which is Irvington Development. I remember when that started up, that deals more with kind of the retail. But I think, even talking about housing now, if you have your house, you may have gotten like a $50,000 bump on your house here lately because the housing prices are so high. But then on the other hand, you have people that are still struggling for jobs and can barely make their rent. And that's the reality for them. So I think it's being able to, whoever you can find that's enthusiastic, within your congregation about looking at those things and seeing how you can impact those things. I work with a lot of churches me and Paige just were at an event at Eastern Star, right up the street from Community. And one of the things that they did, which I thought was beautiful, you know, just with COVID, it's kind of aside, but I think it was a great opportunity for people to just come together on that collective mourning that's happened with COVID. They did, you know, ask members of their congregation, you know, if you lost someone, if you know someone that passed away because of COVID, you know, open it up to the community. And there were 300 people in that congregation that they knew of that had passed away due to COVID. And they came together and did a, you know, kind of a community service about that, and just, you know, recognizing that. And it was on like Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock, and they had maybe like 150 people there. I mean, I was amazed just how they were able to bring people out. But there is, as the COVID rates go down, people, you know, sit back and reflect, you know, what really happened the last 2 years. To be able to recognize the people that we've lost and thinking about, you know, how we're going to go forward with that was really powerful around that. Along with that, Eastern Star does a lot of work around housing, very involved in their neighborhood. You know, the whole door knocking. I love just like knocking on doors and like saying, hey, we're your neighbors. We're here, you know, from church, just want to find out what you're about. And there's groups that do that very well, and do it in a very relatable way, that just to engage folks, to let folks know, okay, the church is here, this is what we're all about, you know, our doors are open, you know, that outreach piece on whether it's after-school programs, whether it's a pantry, whether it's, you know, talking about housing in the neighborhood, whether it's doing some type of, you know, cross-cultural. I know that there was a Spanish-speaking church that share, you know, your space here. What can we do to, you know, get people to be engaged around that? I think it is valuable with that. You know, and people like to come out and find out. You know, I worked with the city of Indianapolis. One thing I miss is you really get that bird's eye view of what's happening in the city. But there's a lot happening around transportation, a lot happening around housing, a lot happening around, you know, having forums like this that can just, you know, get people out of their house, get them sharing about what's important to them, how they want to build this community, how they want to be involved. I think it's important. And also, you know, it's hard that doing that reach out of just kind of the age thing, you know, getting young people invested in their community. You know, they are the future, but they've been dealing with a lot. You know, a lot have been out of school, a big disruption of life. Now, you know, there's a war going on. There's all these high prices. So I think what Paige had mentioned about there's just a lot. There's a lot of darkness out there. And, you know, for churches to really be that light, you know, I feel like we all need to be reading our Bibles and praying on our own so we can give to someone else from whatever we're learning at that. So I think, and, you know, I'm more than willing to drill down more, you know, because I worked with a lot of different community partners, but that was really all that I had to share. But just, you know, the engagement is huge. Letting people know you're here, letting them know what you're about, you know, getting out beyond the walls of the church, I think will say a lot about, you know, whatever effort you do will be good.
Great.
That's it.
Anyone have any
questions?
Yeah.
You talk about having some data, drilling down and getting the data. In the process of doing your outreach at Community Hospital, have you done a demographic breakdown of Irvington or even maybe Indianapolis?
Yeah, and we talked on Savvy. There's a website called Savvy that has all the city data by zip code. Just been handed some. Oh, there's some demographic information. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll talk a little more about Savvy when it's my turn. I only did the most basic type of searching to highlight some of the capabilities.
I wasn't here, but, I mean, if you're gonna start talking about addressing the needs.
Yep.
Can you define the neighborhood in many different ways? Age, sex, economic, I mean, those are all important to be, because otherwise you're really sort of flailing in the dark.
Yep, absolutely. And there, and again, that would take, us getting in a room. We could, look at those resources, drilling down more, definitely. And we did it was a community leadership health kind of fellowship that we did several years ago, where we brought together leaders in healthcare within Community Health Network and leaders in the community, and we were able to kind of really drill down on that data. That's something, we really haven't done since COVID, so it's been several years, but might be something we may revisit. Because when you really get down to that data and you really see what is out there, you're able to address that need in a way that,
We actually have a lot of that demographics from that 2019 New Beginnings survey that the church did. So we actually have a lot of that already. Just a question of, looking at it, but we do have it.
The world is changing
Yeah.
because of demographics, and it's going to be, I've been doing some reading, and basically the world you think of, the world you grew up with, it's gone, it's never coming back. It's a whole new world out there, so, I mean, that might affect the people that live here. That high food prices, high gas prices, those are things that are gonna get worse before they get better.
And COVID has changed everything too. I mean, how people
Accelerate.
relate. I mean, the membership of your church, I don't know if you were doing.
It's really accelerated things, the changes.
Yeah. So, but we need, committed people that are willing to, dig in and do the best that they can with it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Lightfoot. All right, it's really great. So we'll invite Mr. Drum up next, and we're looking forward to hearing your approach on what are some of the needs you see in our community. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life. My son is fifth generation, so we go back to like the 1880s in the neighborhood. Been a realtor for 26 years. I own part of Josephine's with Lisa that we just opened. Some of the needs I see in this neighborhood is, if you're at the store all day, there's all types of just homeless people you can tell walking up and down the street. There's kids after school that have no place to go, which is kind of sad. Used to have a kid come in every day after school wanting to use the phone to get his ride to come pick him up. I mean, just stuff like that. You just felt sorry for that kid because he had no place to go, no place to reach out to. One of the sad things about this neighborhood are some of our older people are leaving because they can't do the stairs anymore in their houses. And there's no place for them to transition into like a condo, one level apartment, I'm not the best public speaker.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Have you guys thought about doing, reaching out to the seniors in the neighborhood, doing a game day, or either senior daycare maybe somebody could be looking into? That's really about all I have.
Well, we saw more than one person has mentioned how they've noticed that there a need for maybe after-school programs for children and youth, and it sounds like you've
And the
identified.
businesses amongst ourselves have talked about that we're seeing a big increase in shoplifting from the teenagers, or I shouldn't say teenagers, but the kids who are after school
Right.
coming, and it just makes you think there's got to be something for them to do. There's got to be,
Right.
they go, they hang out at the library, there's nothing to do, and then, they're.
I was in probably a dozen different businesses today passing out some information. And, I was over in Irvington Plaza, and you got homeless that are living there. You have where the Kroger used to be on the east side of it. there's, the window's broken out, people are coming in and out of there, nobody's reaching out to these people.
Where's this at?
Irvington Plaza,
Oh, the plaza.
yeah. Half of that building's been condemned, I was just told. But I really think the children need something to do after school, and maybe a mentoring program with some of the kids would be good. Any questions? Yes, Mrs. Burke.
The flea market's going to be condemned.
I did not say that.
Wait.
No, opposite side where the barber shop is, and
Oh, you're kidding.
there's part of that has been set on fire, the windows were broken out, and people are just walking in and out of the space.
Well, you know where I live.
Yes.
And, you know, so I've got that on my mind all the time. It's right there in my,
You know, Irvington's one of the best neighborhoods in the neighborhood, or in the city. When people would come to my open houses and they go, you know, what type of people live here? I go, well, it's a really nice neighborhood. I go, there's doctors and attorneys, there's nurses, business people, factory workers. I go, we got seniors, and yes, we got people living on welfare here, but these people, we all decide to live here because that's what we want, that kind of melting pot. I always tell people that Irvington's like a small town.
We've had other people mention there's quite a bit of diversity here,
There is a ton of diversity in our neighborhood, financially.
of all kinds.
Yeah.
Right, of all kinds, racial, economic, you know.
Growing up in the 70s when busing started, I never got bused because the diversity that was in the neighborhood. At School 85 and 57, we were able to avoid that.
Right. You're already in a relatively diverse neighborhood. Sure. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Yes, Ms. Murphy, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to hearing from you. It's Ms. Murphy, Assistant Librarian, is that correct?
Technically, I'm a supervisor librarian. Functionally, I have become the assistant branch manager. If that
Titles are important.
They are. So I've been with the Indianapolis Library System for about 20 years, and I've been at Irvington for about 14 years, and I'm a children's librarian, so that gives me a unique perspective. So, one, I want to share a little bit about Savvy. Savvy is a wonderfully rich data source that can help people analyze and learn more about what is in their community and help them identify community needs. I have done only the most basic of searches, and in the area right around the Irvington Presbyterian Church, Savvy tells me that excessive drinking is above average. The income density is above average. The youth population growth since 2010 is above average. The poverty rate for older adults is above average. The homes are older, median year built, residential, below average. And I get different information when I combine different areas together. And that is just with a click here, a click there, and another click. That's not drilling down and really getting all the information that is possible to get. So I'm going to encourage this congregation and members of the community to take a look at Savvy, S-A-V-I. And again, it's through the Polis Center at IEPY. Another interesting thing is Indy Vitals, and they break out Irvington. It's powered by Savvy, 2019 information. you can see that our population, 2020 total population for the Irvington area was 11,038 people. So please take a look at the data. It'll give you a lot of good stuff to work with. So then, one thing I noticed, a lot of people were saying, the teens and the young people. Well, at the library, we've been trying to do something about it. So I noted that there was friction between different groups that wanted to use the library. Families with young kids, older adults, the teens who are coming in after school. They all have legitimate uses for the library, and sometimes those desired uses conflict with each other. And how staff approach it and how the community approaches it can either spark and cause fires, or can calm and build relationships. So library staff got really tired of sparking fires. And had been searching for how to do things differently. So we've been working with Irvington Preparatory Academy, IPA, and over the years we have really worked on building the relationship, not just with the school, but with the teens. And it's taken years of work. It's been a bumpy ride, and a lot of the work has been done by the teens themselves. We're not going to take all the credit because a relationship has to go more than one way. There has to be mutual trust. So one of the things that we started right before the pandemic started, and I mean just barely, was Teen Zone. We open up our meeting room as a place for teens to hang out. They don't have to do anything, they can simply be. And there's a library staff member in there. We don't supervise, we don't direct, we don't do a program. We're present. And that is one of the most important things that we have found is being present. I mean, truly present, not, I'm here. Hi, I see you. How are you doing? Saying hello. Even saying hello builds the relationship. So I guess one of the things I see a need of in Irvington is for the further building of relationship, not simply presence. We have found that through our efforts, through the efforts of the school, through the efforts of the community, and of the teens themselves, seeing them as individuals, not just saying, yes, I say teens, but I can tell you what a lot of these people do and who they are. I'm not always knowing names, I'm trying to learn names, but personalities, getting to know people as individuals. So our number of, since we have started, I can't give you exact numbers, but there are exact numbers. Our number of security incidents has gone down. Staff are less stressed in working with the teens. So, yeah, it's going to take some work, but there's benefit. So, you know, we see food insecurity. A lot of people will come to the library, and we are a frontline place for, and this has been it for years, and it is heartbreaking because you can't be a social worker, you can't do that. But when somebody presents with a problem, you change hats. And you try and figure out how to best help a person with very little resources and little training. Library system hired a social worker that is based out of Central Library. She's overwhelmed because the need is so great. But for staff, simply to have that training and a backup person and a resource has been huge. So I see need for the services of social workers to connect people to the resources that they need. And that's one of the biggest needs I see in the community, is getting people to the proper resource in a timely fashion and in an effective fashion. So one of the needs that I see that the church can fill, and that the churches and other organizations in Irvington can fill, is more clearly defining and communicating what their mission is, what their specialization is, and how people can access the services in an equitable, respectful, dignified way. You know, the library example. One way that the library can partner, the library system can partner. The library has a program called Library Express. It is for people who are homebound and have no one else to bring them library materials. And it can be a temporarily homebound situation, or it can be a permanently homebound. The library, I'm not sure of our current need in this area, but just using it as an example of, yes, sometimes the library system needs volunteers to pick up books and other material for people who cannot get to the library, and then to take it to them, pick it up when they're done, and return it back to the library. Commitment might be 4 hours a month, maybe. But it makes a huge difference in people's lives. Let's see, what else? Yes, I made notes and such. We also, coming into the community in a non-religious aspect, I know that the church, it's grounded in its faith. The partnership that the library did for the book discussion, that was pretty neat, because it took the community, the relationship, into a secular space and allowed it just to be present, be without having it strings attached. And I think that is going to be a core piece in building the relationships in the community, having something grounded in faith without any faith strings attached, because people have their own experiences. They're going to bring their histories with them, and it's not always conducive. So, questions? Sorry, I can ramble on a little more, but questions at this point?
I just want to at least affirm a couple of things that you said from other folks. The school principal who was here on Saturday said a lot, or I should say, resonated with what you're saying, with the importance of these kids having a presence of adults in their lives. Yes. And it sounds like just by being there, you know, the librarians and such, not with a particular agenda, except to be there maybe to provide some minimal supervision, but just by being there, that by itself made a difference.
Yes.
And I think that's part of what she said too, is these children and youth need some kind of, and by recognition, I mean really just recognizing their name, let alone recognition in an affirming way as well.
I see you. How are you today? I see you, Steve. How are you today?
Exactly. That's a lot of what she said too, just to affirm your observation. That's right on, spot on. I think, and you also mentioned about how it might be good for churches to specialize. You know, we can't be all things to all people.
Exactly.
And I work for the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance as a national responder. And one of the things they've done, the denominations over the years, is denominations specialize in different areas. Like the Southern Baptists bring in chainsaws. Their job is they go in and clear trees. That's what the Southern Baptists do. The Methodists might go in and provide meals. They'll pull up a semi-trailer, and it's a specially designed semi that's created for making meals at disaster areas. And the Lutherans come in and they provide childcare. And the Presbyterians, we like to be bossy, so we overview the whole thing. But you know, we actually provide counseling, you know, but the point is that each of these denominations have learned this is their niche, and that way how they work together. And so I think, again, that's kind of affirming what you said. Good. What are some, any questions for Ms. Murphy? Well, that's just that little bit that's really helpful. I appreciate it. And I would like to have that paper you were just quoting from Savvy.
Okay, keep in mind, this is just the most basic, not drilling down with any data or really, but if you want to know more, come by, we'll try and help you.
I got one. I printed off in the end of 2021 too, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Great. So last but not least, Ms. Bennett, who I guess owner-operator of a couple different places, the Black Sheep and Josephine's Dress Shop, is that right? So really do appreciate your time. So welcome, come right up.
Hello.
Hello.
So, again, I'm Lisa Bennett. I own Black Sheep Gifts, and I'm one of the partners at Josephine's in Irvington. Came today, hopefully, to talk about what I believe the church can do for the community, and obviously, through that our outreach, hopefully get more, a larger congregation, I'm assuming is the goal. You clearly have talked to a lot of people far smarter than what I am. You've heard a lot of, obviously, great ideas, so I'm kind of going to dumb it down and kind of tell you my just basics, things that I see. Again, the kids out after school, I think that that's not a new problem. That's something that's gone on for generations. If there's something that the businesses and the business organization can do to help with that, if you guys come up with something, we would be more than happy to help with that. Whether it be that, you know, through the businesses, we could, quote, mentor or hire a child to do something, clean the walks, things like that. I also think that the more that the kids know the business owners are people, and that when you steal from us, you're stealing from me, and no different than walking into my house and stealing from me, I think that makes a difference. So anything that the businesses can do, we're there to help you guys also. I look at things a little bit more basic, I guess. We have a lot of planters along Washington Street with no plants in them. We have a lot of organizations and a lot of clubs, but yet we have weeds in these planters, you know. Is there something we can do to get those planted, to get street cleanups or just general cleanups? There used to be electronic days and toxic days where you could take your old electronics or you could take your old paint, drop it off. I don't see us doing anything like that in quite some time. Those types of things that would then, obviously you see the Presbyterian Church listed as a sponsor or a drop-off point. Again, the same thing. It's no different than the kids seeing us as people and not wanting to steal from the businesses. It's the same as people coming to these events that you guys put on, and all of a sudden it's not just the Presbyterian Church. It's Miss Bird, or it's the people there. And now I want to go because I know you and I want to see what the organization is like. So are there any questions, anything that you guys want from us?
I'm curious if you have trouble finding employees, and if your employees tend to come from the neighborhood.
So I'm in a slightly different situation than, you know, some of the restaurants and things like that. I've been very lucky. My employees have come from my customers who have come to me, and I have people who work a half a day a week, and they want something to do. They want to get out of the house. They're retired. So we don't have the problems with like looking for it like a restaurant would. I know that the restaurants have a lot of problems finding and keeping employees. When I think about doing something with like the teenagers, again, I could see me saying
hey, sure, come in once a week and I'll pay you $20 to sweep the front, front steps and take the trash out type of thing, but yeah. Is there anything that the businesses can do to help the church? And not only, by the way, I know that this isn't just the Presbyterian Church's problem. I know a lot of churches are struggling trying to get that membership count back up. So is there anything that we can do to help?
Yeah, believe it or not, that really wasn't the first motivation. I'm the interim pastor, so I'm here to help prepare the way for the new pastor. And so this is a good opportunity for us to reimagine what is the mission of this church. And I'm sure we'd all be pleased as punch if suddenly whatever that was brought on 100 people, but that really wasn't, that was secondary. Really the motivation was we figure that if we're doing God's will, things will more likely fall into place.
Right.
And so really helping us to perceive what you see as areas of concern or in the community, that was a really big piece of what you could do to help it. You've all given us some good ideas. So that's a large part of it. I would say that if indeed we did take a step and decide, we're going to do something for children and youth, let's say we were to go that direction, I'm sure we would love to have your support if it, if we said we had an after-school program for kids and we said we want to put them to work for a period of time. I'm sure things like that would be really helpful if you would cooperate with us in such a program. So as I'm imagining, that would be a piece of it in a future date.
Okay.
But yeah, something like that. So thank you. Yeah.
Lisa, I just think we should thank you for all the wonderful baskets you've done.
You are more than welcome. That is not a problem at all. Happy to do it.
You see, wow, they were wonderful.
Thank you.
And that raised a lot of money.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It was good.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have any parting questions before we go? Yeah, please.
I'm a substitute teacher at Irvington Community Schools, and so I've got to know a lot of the students and the teenagers and stuff, and it's kind of like maybe an in and deep. I've gotten to know them, and I think I'm on their.
Well, you work with them. You work with them. You're going to have a good. Well, you're going to have a understanding that we wouldn't have, or I'm saying I wouldn't have. So no, I'd really appreciate your thoughts.
I think that's primarily the teams you're talking about are probably from IPA and maybe the middle school.
Absolutely. So no, when we go to ponder that, really would appreciate your help with whatever insights you have. Absolutely, because we wouldn't want to do this without really getting the input of people who are in the front lines, so to speak, of this.
If you guys discover in the Savvy data that there's a particular chronic disease that seems to be maybe a little more prevalent here, like maybe it's diabetes, maybe it's heart failure, that sort of thing. I mean, we have people at the hospital, nurses that would be happy to do, you want to bring the people together, we can bring someone down here for 30 minutes to give high points and maybe pass out some literature or whatever and do a little bit of education.
Absolutely.
Around that particular, I mean, we may not have every single disease covered, but I could probably.
You're going to have a lot.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to blood drives, is that strictly the Red Cross, or would you help with that?
That would be, the blood bank. Versity, yeah. And we do have those about every 4 to 6 weeks in the.
I keep thinking that.
A lot of communities.
Yeah, which is obviously a good location, but I thought that even for the neighborhood here, I don't know if they have, sometimes they have those mobile units. I wasn't sure if that works.
Yeah, they can pull the big motorhome thing right in the parking lot.
Is it, could you help me,
Give you contact.
get a contact? Okay. All right. Yeah, Deanna?
Are we still selling houses like we were? I mean, is it still the turnover?
The market, the inventory is so low, they are still selling fast. Just because of the low inventory, our interest rates though are just pushing up, and today they went up a lot. They said, I didn't see the figure yet, but I heard on CNBC they were talking about the interest rates being up. So, you know, I just saw a house listed on Emerson. It just came up in my office for $249 for a bungalow, and I'm like, on Emerson. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other?
Still keep coming. On my street, you put a house up, the 2 days later, it's quite a
yeah,
bit.
there's usually multiple offers in on a house.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, let's give our folks a round of applause again to thank them. Thanks to all of you for coming out to these events. Debbie Fravo and I are putting together some minutes or thoughts or recollections, reflections from what we've heard, and we'll start to get to a point where we can share those with everyone. So, God bless you all. Have a wonderful week, and hopefully we'll see you Sunday, if not some other time. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Very good.